Peace. I'm the host this evening for the show. Let's deal with it. Lady V couldn't make it today. She's a little bit under the weather. So it's going to be me, Tia, and we're going to have Nate chime in a little bit later. One of our other co-hosts, Dr. Tober, won't be in today either. He actually has some business to attend to. But we still have a great show lined up for you. It's going to be full of exciting, intricate conversation about something that is it's an interesting topic, right? Because some say insecurities are up to that person to secure, right? It's security within yourself, like self-esteem is esteem of yourself. But some also think that a lot of insecurities are created because somebody else violated something internally within them. So it's not secure internally anymore. Somebody violated something, and it might be that person's job to fix it. Or if you didn't do it, it might be your job to help that person heal from it. So we're going to get a lot of different takes on this. I'm going to add my co-host to the show in now. We got Tia. Tia, speak to the people. Looking lovely today.
Why, thank you, Carlos. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be on, standing in for my girl Victoria. We're going to keep her lifted in prayer. I know she's in
Definitely.
Texas. She's in Texas, and they've been dealing with crazy situation out there. But we know that we still serve a
Crazy.
God who reigns. So we're going to trust everything is
Come
going to
on.
work out for her good. So I'm happy to be on in her absence, and I look forward to this conversation. This is
The hair
definitely
laid, though, girl. The hair laid. Now I see you now. Hair laid. Come on.
no, I gotta bring it. And today in the beauty industry is National Lash Day, so I had to bring y'all the
Okay,
extra
you got a lot of
education.
lashes there. Bring them on.
Oh
All
my
right. And
god.
I think we got Nate with us too. Let me pop Nate up in here. Nate, the great. What's going on?
Hey, good evening. Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, we about to get into the show. Good to see you. Looking well, feeling well. So let's
I'm
deal
getting
with
a
it.
delay here a little bit.
You getting a delay?
I
All
think
right,
it's
let me
catching
try to figure it out.
up.
You still got it? And he paused right now, Tia. But so let's talk about it, right? Let's deal with it. We talking about
Hold on.
insecurities. Now, a lot of people feel like if a certain person is always questioning you about things that you're doing or wondering why you're not where you said you was going to be, all those small little intricate things like that, that means that person is insecure. Um, whose job do we think it is to fix insecurities that are built within a person?
Well, definitely, it always starts with yourself. So it's definitely your job to deal with any insecurities that are internal, because no one knows your story like you know your story, right? So I
Valid.
think that ultimately we have to take ownership of our own emotions, our own actions, our own healing, our own wholeness. That's ultimately falls on us. Now, if you decide to get in a relationship with someone, and when we say relationships, we're not necessarily talking about um, eros. We're not necessarily talking about romantic relationships. We are
Hmm.
talking about also friendships, because you could bring insecurities into your friendships as well. So I just want to make sure we have that distinction there, that it's not necessarily, on a romantic level, but it can actually be on a friendship level as well.
Hmm. Valid. But let me approach it in a different way to you. So like let's say me and my significant other, we're in a relationship and I go and see she's been flirting with people via text. Now I'm not an insecure person by nature, but after I find out this information, I'm now secure in my space with her, which triggers other insecurities I had before, because everybody has some level of insecurity in them. So I think it does start with self, but I think we discredit the contribution that others make in regards to our insecurities, though.
I could agree with that. But you said something very interesting and critical. You said that you don't have the insecurity, right? So I
Originally.
think if you don't originally have the insecurity, then it is, for me, if I was in that scenario, I would look at it as a character flaw. There's a difference.
Hmm.
There's a character flaw there. And again, to if I'm secure, right? Secure means you're secure. There's
Nobody violated, nobody broke
nobody
in and
violated.
nothing.
You're
Yeah,
secure.
correct.
So if I'm secure, then I am going to automatically dismiss that as a character flaw because I know I'm not insecure.
Hmm.
So you have a character flaw and you need to address that. So that would not create an insecurity in me. Now that's just me personally. That wouldn't create an insecurity in me unless again, unless I'm already having self doubts.
Hmm. And I
You
think
know,
that the thing is, it's not hard to get to a place of self doubt, though. I mean, studies show that we have at least like 80% of our thoughts are negative. That's what studies show. So all it takes is a small little, you know, a little chink in the armor that causes us to start thinking differently about something. And that one thought leads to another. And if that person, my approach to insecurities is this, right? I do feel like insecurities start with the individual, but I shouldn't sign up to be with that individual if I can't help her secure those insecurities. Because I mean, I wasn't built for this job. See what I'm saying? Because you can't be with an insecure person. So you have to help her, whether it's through counseling or speaking light into whatever those insecurities are. It's my job as a man to give her affirmation where she's insecure at. So,
absolutely,
and
I agree with
honestly,
you.
and women discredit that your affirmation matters to men too. I mean, everything we do is, I mean, we get haircuts for y'all. We, put on nice clothes for y'all. We look for your affirmation as well. And a lot of times I don't think women understand that and they don't secure their men. And it's very easy for a man to run astray if he's not being secured or affirmed at home.
Well, I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna let Nate chime in as well. I actually agree with you, but you have to also. It's just like with anything else, even in ministry, because I'm in ministry. You have to know when a fight is not yours. So it may
Valid.
not be your fight. You know what I mean? If
That's very true.
you can't pour from an empty cup. So a lot of people are in codependent relationships. Like you're not whole. You're dealing with insecurities. They're dealing with insecurities, and you both are trying to cope in this relationship, and it doesn't work. I remember listening to I can't remember Cherie. I can't remember Cherie Fletcher. She actually married. She's Will Smith's ex-wife, and she married the
Oh, I
pastor
know,
out of
I know
California.
you're talking about.
And I remember her telling the story, and they were together. They're actually divorced now, but they were telling the story about when she ended her relationship with Will Smith, how he would always have to answer her phone call because she was insecure about that because she
Mm,
carried that from her previous relationship. So one of
mm-hmm.
the things that he was intentional about doing was no matter what he was doing, he would always pick up her phone call
Give her that
until she
security.
wouldn't call him no more. And became a point where she
It stopped.
stopped.
Correct. Correct.
But he had to
And
know that was his fight and that was his ministry to have. Because he could have easily said, well, you know what?
you're
Let's take some
insecure. You
time.
don't need
Yep.
that. The exact. And that's the part I wanted to get to because a lot of people use it as an escape route instead of looking at it as an opportunity to help better somebody. They're like, oh, no, I can't deal with me insecure. I can't deal with her. She insecure. When it's actually an opportunity to actually lift somebody up. And after you lift that, because I've been in relationships where I've always been a very confident, full of self-esteem guy. And I've been in relationships where the relationship was so draining to the point where I forgot who I was. And you go back out here and you be like, man, do I still got it? Am I still collars? You know what I'm saying? Like, does my cologne still smell good? I don't even know no more. You know what I'm saying? So it's an interesting dynamic when you're talking about insecurities. And I guess what you're saying is what you're saying is very valid. You got to know when it's your fight and when it's not, because sometimes you're trying to secure somebody from stuff that their mom or their daddy did to them, and that might be a little bit too much for you. You can give it an attempt, but they got counselors out there and therapists too. You got to hold their hand through those situations too. Nate, what you got for us?
Yeah, so I apologize if you can't hardly hear my voices for whatever reason done left me
You
this
under the
morning.
weather too? What's going on?
No, I'm not feeling bad or anything. I just woke up and my voice just went down somewhere else. It left Georgia. I don't know.
That's how it
But
is. The first time you talk in the morning is always like that. The first time you
yeah.
talk in the morning.
But with the insecurity thing, I definitely both you guys said some great points that I really agree with. I do believe the insecurity starts with the person. Um, th- People can try to just in my opinion, how I view it. A lot of times being an outside source can try to help that partner, that spouse, and everything like that. But if that person is not making the effort, because a lot of times people like to hold on to things that happened from previous things, as a defense mechanism. But if you're
Mhm.
not, with those insecurities, is basically, you're building your own anxiety up. Okay. And a lot of times where the thing I have an issue with a lot of times too with the insecure person is they will identify a current situation as a previous situation,
Mm,
their perception.
all the time.
But we all know, a person's perception is their reality, but that doesn't make it the truth. You see what I'm saying? With the
Valid.
example Miss Tia has said about the, Cherie and her pastor husband and everything like that. And that's why all fine, well and good that he was able to help her, get her secure in that situation and everything like that. But everybody's not built like that.
Mhm.
Everybody, that's not everybody's job. I wouldn't want, you know, my wife to make me feel secure about, uh, oh, I don't want her talking to somebody or whatever because they may be trying to get up whatever case. That's and that'd be far from the truth.
Yeah, with
And I
situations like that, anyway, not to cut you off, but situations like that, you can't prevent anyway. Because if you stop her from talking to this guy, she's gonna end up talking to that guy. If you stop that guy, it's gonna be another guy. It's something deeper there. It's not the person that's the issue. It's something going on between y'all two. It's something that she's longing for that she's not getting because you can't block all the flirts. You know what I'm saying?
and it could be something that's deep internally in my head because I'm sitting there conjuring up a scenario that's not true.
Oh
They
yeah, definitely.
just they just having a regular conversation,
And if you think about it long enough, it's a reality. So you're
Yeah,
definitely right about that.
yeah, exactly. So that's definitely something internal that individuals have to work on themselves. And
Hmm.
if they can't work it out themselves, that's definitely something you need to be talking to somebody, seek counseling, any old type of thing, because and this subject is very definitely near to me because I definitely was an insecure man.
Oh
And
yeah.
I know for me, the reason why I was an insecure man in relationships because I wasn't where I wanted to be in life. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
I
most men. Honestly, that's most men. Most
Yeah,
men deal with insecurities based upon they're not where they want to be at in life, and they can't provide and protect the way they want to. So,
yeah, most
so my
definitely.
question for you is: you don't feel like your wife needs to give you any affirmation at all?
Right now, currently, I
Mhm.
don't I don't need I know my wife loves me. So give me an example of the affirmation that you're talking about. Exactly.
Appreciation in regards to, hey baby, you're doing a good job. I love how you are with the kids. I love how like just affirming your hard work and dedication is being seen and appreciated.
What we do, I know our relationship, we do that because I give her affirmation and she gives that to me. I think it's one of those things when you start to be with somebody and then they pick up your characteristics.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Because the
know?
reason why I asked you that though is because I believe that if you're not affirming somebody, then you're going to eventually make that person insecure because they're not feeling like what they're doing is being appreciated. So in due
I
time, that person is going to have a certain level of resentment for all the hard work they're doing that's not getting noticed, whether it's a man or a woman.
Yeah, I get with that point that you're saying. It was something I was actually talking to a good friend of mine about. You know, there has to be a reward for the work.
Facts.
Just like we go to our 9 to 5, our reward is getting that paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even when you're in a relationship, and you talk about marriage, you're talking about the cooking and cleaning and going to work and fixing and all this other stuff. Yeah, if that spouse isn't, if I see my wife right now, she's over there getting my daughter ready, and she's on call working still, and gonna set it down for bed and everything like that. If I don't sit there, it's in me to be like, hey man, thank you for stepping up while I'm doing this, yada yada yada, and every case may be. I cook tonight, so she's gonna be cleaning the kitchen.
Okay, what you cook? Hold up, wait.
Oh
What
man,
you
you
cook?
listen,
Don't say with
listen,
spaghetti. Don't say spaghetti.
listen.
Don't
No
count.
sir, no
Spaghetti don't
sir.
count.
I had to take this chicken breast, right? Got this cream of chicken and everything, made nice little gravy
Okay.
with the rice and broccoli and stuff like that. Yeah, so yeah, Victoria, yeah, I got the ice a little bit too because I was like, whoo, that food was good. But yeah, but that's one of those things where when you talk about being a long lasting relationship, those are things that you just work out.
Mhm.
I definitely starting out with my wife, I felt secure within myself. When I came off a broken engagement, I broke off an engagement.
So that's something I wanted to ask you too as well. So
Sure.
like you said, you was an insecure man, right?
Yeah.
So what made you a secure man? Secure enough to ask another woman for her hand in marriage and feel like you can actually fill those shoes of providing for her and a family.
This is what I did because of my last relationship. I did so much that I lost myself. I lost my identity because I was trying to make myself something, right? And I lost myself. And then
Okay.
when I separated from that situation, I started taking time for myself, started growing in God more, and started realizing it was really I was affirming myself. And I'm a big sports guy, so what I used to tell myself, like, yo, I'm a first round pick. Like, why am I subjecting myself to,
So I'm first round pick.
well, I'm first round pick. It was like, why am I subjecting myself being, this piss poor man that's insecure and everything like that? Like, I know what type of person I am. I know what type of heart I am. I'm not out here, being a baby daddy, beating on women and doing all this other craziness. You know what I'm saying? If somebody, is not gonna respect me, then they can go ahead and kick rocks. So these
Okay.
are
So you
these are
feel like, hold on, so 1 second. So you feel like a lot of your insecurities were a product of the relationship that you was in previously.
it was a lot of things because it was the relationship I was in. That's when I started learning the difference between private and secrecy. I thought
Mhm.
our relationship was private, but it was really secret.
Oh, that's heavy.
Yeah. So that was the one thing, and then she had a daughter, and it was the point where when I did try to step up and be like the father figure and everything like that. I mean, anything that was negative, I mean, she just cut me down at the throat, and it felt like they were double teaming me, right? And so when I expressed these concerns, I got diminished, you know.
Mm.
So it was like, okay, we're trying to build this life together. I see what's going on. And then when I tried to put some authority into the house, it was like, oh no,
Yeah, see,
you you
that's the point right there. Like you wasn't able like to like be who you feel like you was called to be, which created that insecurity. Like
yeah, most definitely. And it
and like
wasn't
even that, and that's a deeper issue in regards to when you're dating somebody and you already have a kid or they already have a kid. That
mhm.
person that has the kid has to affirm that other person's position with that kid, or
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be it's going to be a rough, turbulent situation.
Yeah, it definitely was rough, coming from in the aspect when you coming in as a step parent, and especially because she was already older. She was at the time like 9 or 10 or something like that.
Oh
So
wow, yeah,
so
yeah,
they were like set in stone in their relationship, you know what I'm saying? Almost to the fact where that was like her best friend, being her daughter, which was nothing wrong. I didn't want to come in and try to set my own ground. What I did was try to be an asset to what was already going on. But it was like, and this is just my perception, how I felt. It was like, they're over here, they're over there. Then when she go to bed, then me and the mom can come together, that type of thing, and that's where, I based our relationship on. And I'm just being honest. When the daughter went to bed, then it was like, yeah, everything was hunky dory, you know. And this one thing when I discovered from that was I see why a lot of times people stay in relationships, bad relationships, because it's like when it's bad, it's like so bad, but when it's good, it's like, man, it's so good, you
yeah.
know. And then you especially when you
You
got
go through
church
the lows, you
background.
go through the lows to wait for the highs again. It's just like any other addiction. Yeah,
And then you
same
wait,
thing.
to see like, man, it's gonna get better. It's got to get better. Next thing you know, a year go by, 3 years go by. So much time go by. And then here it is. A lot of times people just ended up staying in that same situation, thinking things are going to change,
Yeah.
and sometimes it doesn't change.
Yeah, I wanna level set us here right quick, because we're using the word affirmation, and I want to make sure that our viewers, all of us, are on the same sheet of music when it comes to that. Affirmation is really nothing more than emotional support. That's really nothing. That's pretty. Actually, I think that's actually the textbook definition of it. So when we say words of affirmation, and I saw someone in the chat actually on Facebook actually mention something that I'm a proponent of, which is the five love languages, right? So that's going to look different for everyone. Um, I really do think I'm 45 years old. I've been living this life a long time. Men need affirmation. They need to be affirmed. They need to be felt. They need to feel appreciated. Men need to feel that. It took me a while to learn that, but they do. And I've been married before divorce, and I'm one of those people who, when I go through a situation, I really analyze that situation versus jump into another situation, right? So I took some great time studying where I went wrong, what happened, and to Nate's point, when I think about what it looked like for me growing up, that played a huge part in what I brought into my relationship, right? So I grew up, my grandmother had 12 kids. I grew up with the women serving their man hand and foot. Their man was their end all be all. That's all they did. So when I grew up, when I then entered into a marriage and a relationship, I thought that is the way I was supposed to be. But it did not. It made me insecure.
Mm,
He didn't make me insecure, but the fact that I didn't feel like inside I was living up to what I saw growing up because I thought
mm,
this is what it was supposed to be, right? So that developed the insecurity in me in and of itself. And then it wasn't until I actually studied, myself, got to know who I am, got to love Tia for Tia, that I was then able to now be at a place where I'm good. I'm secure enough to enter into this relationship. And not only that, but I'm also not ignoring any of the flags that come up. And I think a lot of times people rush so fast into relationships because they don't want to lose a person, or, they think that, okay, well, we'll work it out somewhere down the road. And then when you do go through those highs and lows, because you're going to go, people who've been married for 70 years go through highs and lows of relationships, right? But if you're going through that low where it's brought on by things like insecurity or infidelity or
mm.
abuse, or so it depends on what that low is. You know what I mean? Not, so I think that's an exception. So when it comes to affirming, everyone doesn't need to be affirmed. Like, I don't need to be told I'm beautiful all the time, but I do need time, you know?
Oh yeah, you
So
hold on. So you don't need to be told that you're beautiful.
I absolutely do not. And I'm
Oh
telling you,
yeah.
I know I'm top 10% of the country. You ain't got to tell me that I'm
Oh,
beautiful. You know what I mean? So,
but that's an interesting take though, because so me and my wife, we talk about love languages a lot, and the other day I asked her a question. I was like, rank them in regards to which ones you would want your kids to value and appreciate 1 through 5, and 4 and 5, like at the bottom of the list, always was words of affirmation, and I think a lot of us put less value on words of affirmation because a lot of people have been manipulated by words. I think that has a lot to do with it. But words of affirmation are very important if they're used properly. It's just that so many people manipulate them to the point where we start to devalue them, though.
they are very important. However, what is their level of importance, which is the point of love languages, right?
Hmm.
To me, it's not a high level of importance.
So it's
To
now you're
me,
listening. So okay. So give me from 1 to 5. Go top. Give us the top one.
so now I got to remember what they are. I know what my personal words is. I only
Is
focus on the
gifts.
ones that are mine. Wasn't even gifts. Gifts was like number four. Mine was
That's at
time.
the bottom for me too.
Yep. Mine was time, acts of service,
Touch.
Touch. I'm sorry, that's right. Mine was time, touch, active service, gifts, and then words of affirmation.
Okay, that's similar. Mine's was acts of service, time. I equate time and touch together because if I'm spending time with you, then I'm touching you. That's just how I am.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then it
Right.
was words of affirmation, and then it was gifts. But yeah, that's interesting to know that most of us put lower value on words of affirmation though. All
But
across
if
the
you
board.
don't, but if you don't know yourself, you don't even know how to rank any of that because you're really just bobbing for apples, right? And my dad always tells me if you don't place value on yourself, someone else is going to place the value on you.
Oh yeah, facts.
Right. So that's what ends up happening when you go from relationship is that you keep getting these price tags put on you by everyone, but you never taking the time to actually say, what is my own worth? Like, what am I putting into myself before I can even get into a relationship? And so that's a thing. I think that's a lot of times, and I'm just speaking from a woman, where those insecurities come from. It's because we go into relationships seeking to feel something, and when we don't find it, or if it's there only for like the first 6 months, and then you end up marrying, and now it's gone for the next 10 years. Now you're up in this relationship and you don't know how to sustain. You have to be able to be good with yourself because when those lows come, and they're going to come, how are you going to be happy? A person can't make you happy.
Yeah, if your
You know,
happiness is based upon that person, yeah, you might be in for some trouble.
absolutely.
You might be in for some trouble.
My man could be in the other room and I'm good as golden. Like I'm not blowing up
Hmm.
his phone. I'm not seeing where he is. I trust, he knows if I find out, that's it. I mean, so that's all I gotta say. I'm not gonna track behind you, check you, all of that. I'm not doing that. I have too much to do in my life than to track some man down. But don't let me find out.
So so look, when the insecurities are created and you're in the relationship and it's created by that person, is that grounds to leave or do you have that conversation to try to work it out?
Oh, that's definitely time to talk
You
about
have to
it.
count up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah,
you
you
You're
have to
think,
always
count up the cost.
yeah, so
I
you're
think you
thinking
have
you
to
should
count
talk
up
it
the
out.
cost. I think you have
Because
to
a lot
count
of
up the
times
cost.
if you bring your insecurity, if you come to another person and say, hey, I'm feeling insecure about such and such and such, they're gonna turn that back on you and be like, well, yeah, that's just your issue. They're not gonna take any accountability for it. And a lot of times when people are bringing issues of insecurity to somebody, they're really wanting that person to take some accountability for it.
That's tough. I mean, okay, if we're talking about not being in a marriage and you're insecure, you have to count up that cost, right? Because
Mhm.
this is the premarital stage is like almost like the interview stage. That's kind of where you figure everything out, right? At least I think people should take that time, right? So you have to count up the cost. I'm not going to continue to try to pull you out of your pit of insecurity if it means subtracting from myself.
Mhm.
If it means taking away my peace, if it means taking away my value, I'm not going to continue to do that. But if you're taking a concerted effort to heal yourself, then of course I'm going to support that because no one comes to us perfect, right? But you have to be taking that concerted effort, and I have to see the work. You have to do the work. I'm gonna use a
But if
Donna
it's,
Van Zant's word. You
come
got to
on
do the
now,
work.
do the work. You got to do the work. But look, but if it's something that you're doing though that's causing the insecurity, now do you take like a lot of people would? Are you a person that takes a prideful stance and defends what you do, or do you address the insecurities and the hurt that you're causing this person? Because you might not be necessarily doing nothing wrong. It's just that it's causing the insecurity in this person. This is where a lot of people like miscommunications happen because I'm telling you my experience with you. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong that you've done to me, but this is my experience to you, and this is how it's making me feel. And most people get on their heart. Well, I ain't got nothing to do with it. I'm just doing this. What's wrong with me doing this? I ain't doing nothing with this. I was just doing this. I just like the pictures. I was just on Instagram doing this. I wasn't doing nothing. Like, but what you're doing is causing an experience for this person that's causing them to feel some type of way. So do you step back and address what they're feeling, or do you stand 10 toes down on the fact that you feel like there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, even though it's causing insecurities in that person?
Okay, so I'm gonna use two scenarios, right? So one scenario is real to me. I was actually dating someone who was so insecure because I made more money than he did, and it constantly caused issues in our
That's the rough
relationship.
one, though.
Constantly, constantly. definitely. And the reality was I was in cybersecurity, so it was only way to go was up. So I was constantly in the DMV area. So you can make anywhere from 90 to $180,000 a year, right?
So
So hold on. So that was an insecurity. I cannot help that insecurity. However, I had a friend who was talking about her husband um, actually brought up an issue to her because he wouldn't take the trash out when she needed to. So she would always jump and do it. Like stuff, she would always do it almost like I can handle it myself. She would take on the man role. So it used to bother him because his thing was the trash don't come till tomorrow at 6 a.m. Like I'm going to get it out there. Now, in a case like that, absolutely. If you bring that to me and you're like, listen, babe, like just chill. If I'm gonna look at myself and be like, all right, that's on me. Let me just, go back to the drawing board. And now it may still burn me up inside, but but I would really try to chill out and try to, let him find his own way.
but so back, but going back to the money, making more money than that man, though. How is it handled? Because a lot of times it's the way that it's presented and the way that it's handled that causes that person act in a way that's not as pleasant as normal.
No, it really wasn't because anyone that knows me though, I'm a very giving person. Like what's mine,
Okay.
I'm easily the what's mine is yours type. Like,
Okay.
right? So I remember
So you
I
wasn't
even
going out saying
agreed.
stuff like, "Oh, well, I paid for it." You weren't doing none of that.
I
Okay.
even agreed. I even agreed to put it in a joint account. So, but his whole thing was just the fact that I'm
Just the
bringing it
fact that you did it.
home, and he would say that he can't get me anything I can't get myself. But he
Oh
had
yeah,
it. She just
yeah. You
had it
can't do
all
nothing with
wrong.
that. You can't do
You know
nothing with
what?
that. You can't do nothing with
But
that.
check this out. When I got with my wife was making more than me, and I believe I told this on the platform before. So when we got to the part of the relationship, we're talking about the finances and everything like that. So at the time, she's working at a hospital. I was doing exterminating for organ. I was doing commercial properties, and she was making more than me. And so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, which is great. I didn't have a problem with it, but at the same time, it was always in the back of my mind because I was like, okay, not saying she put, and she never did put any pressure on me, anything like that. But my whole thing was like, I don't want it to ever be an issue. All right. So I was
So
like,
you got
okay.
on you put your tighten up your boots. So you about to
So
say,
yeah, I basically just like, okay, this is for the long haul. Let me look into the future and everything like that. So that's when I went in. This is when we was in Charlotte, and I found this HVAC company, heating and air, and they actually taught you how to do it. They had a own internal school, and when you're done with the school, you get to work there and everything. I took a huge pay cut to go to the school, and my wife, and this is the time we're planning our wedding. We took a whole year to pay for our wedding and everything like that. So my wife, she actually, once I explained to her, came up with a concrete plan. Like, I showed her, okay, trust me, within a couple years, I'm gonna be able to make this and we're gonna be good and everything like that. I just gotta do this entry level type of thing. We communicate, we had this conversation and everything like that. So, and she really did step it up. Excuse me. She picked up more hours, so we could be able to make the bills and pay for the wedding and everything like that. And then, long story short, 2 years later, I get a federal job working for the federal government to where making more money and having the crazy federal benefits just because you know I looked at the situation like, okay, I'm trying to do better for my family.
played the long
So
game. You played the long
played
game.
the long game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why, and I know a lot of guys are like that, but I think if he, and just listen to him, Steve, if he would have actually looked at it like, okay, whatever he's doing, well, if she's doing this, because it's like a lot of times we got to be introduced to a whole new world also. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we can get complacent and just because I was satisfied where I was at. But when I got
Mhm.
with my wife, I started seeing a whole new type of thing, because I was always the type of person to settle. My wife, she's an extrovert. She don't have me traveling. I don't went out the country because this lady, you know. everything.
Hey, that's what it's about, man. They expose you to
Exactly.
new things and new ideas. That's what it's supposed to be about anyway. You know, men, we Neanderthals at our nature, man. We just overdo it
Exactly.
sometimes, you know. It is what it
Exactly.
is.
Most definitely. Facts.
Every time I compose like an email or something to send, I always give it to my wife first and let her read over it. Then it come back looking like something totally different. And I'd be like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to go.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about in
I be
relationships,
jealous
man.
on the low though because I be wanting it to be right, so I be going over it like 12 and 15 times. Like I'm gonna say a good one this time. She ain't gonna change nothing, and I give it to her, and she chop it all up into something different. I be wanting to like mine better, but hers be better.
And that's why you have to, and that's why even as a couple, you have to have that empire built in mind, right? Regardless of what that empire is. And
Exactly.
I've always had that mind ever since I was little. But again, it goes back to knowing who you are and the type of mate
Hmm.
that you need to attract and the type of mate that you need to be with. Because I mean, if you're waiting on me to slow down, you're going to be sorely disappointed because I'm a whole boss
Yeah,
out here in these streets. And every time I
Hmm.
turn around, I'm trying to figure out another way to evolve,
you
another
get
way
it.
to be innovative, another way. So I'm always
Exactly.
doing that. So that all of that shape who can enter into my space, whether that's a man or even a friend. Like I've dropped friends because of the same
Yeah, that's a good
situations. You
move.
know what I'm saying? You know, because your insecurities can't slow me down. And that's not to
Hmm.
say that I'm not sensitive to what your how you feel. But like Tyler Perry said, everyone can't go where you're going.
Hmm.
That's true. It ain't for
Very true.
everybody. It was your vision. They ain't see it, so that's why it was your vision.
Oh yeah, most definitely, most definitely. Even
And to Shonda's point, she says some men have tunnel vision. I don't even think it's some. I think it's a majority of us. That's how we execute and that's how we operate. And the multitasking comes from your better half, your other partner. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm the type of guy I know what I'm gonna go get before I get to the restaurant. I know what I'm gonna eat every time. I don't need to look at the menu. I want to park in the same spot. It's just how I operate. You know what I'm saying? But that's the same thing that caused me to have tunnel vision towards my wife and pursue her until I got to marry her. It's just how men work, and it is a woman's job to hey look out this side of y'all, look over there, and look over there, and you look at all these different things, and then you get a beautiful picture. So when you're dating a woman that's making more than you, that's not a situation. A lot of times, the men that I know have issues with that is because they don't have anything else to offer. They don't have
hmm
anything else to bring to the table. Whether it's emotional security, physical, mental. They don't have any conversation. They don't have anything else to offer. And they grew up thinking how you treat a woman nice is you buy her things and you take her places. And if I can't afford to do those two things, she could do those without me, then what's my value here? And that's a narrative that we got to get away from because it ain't just about those two things. Because I mean, I can buy 9 different women, 9 different gifts from my phone in 9 minutes. You know what I'm saying? But it's about time, effort, and energy. Those things matter too. And a lot of men, we don't understand that because we can't do the things that we seen on TV when we was kids.
And a lot of things too with the money issue is it's a control factor. A lot of men, they use money as controlling a female to do what they want to do, and that actually having the most money actually doesn't highlight the fact of all these other character faults they have.
Mm-hmm.
Not able to communicate, not being consistent.
But
Not,
it masks
not
them long enough to keep them in that relationship though. A lot of guys buy time in
mhm.
relationships by buying gifts and taking people out and going on
Taking
trips.
on trips,
Yeah,
yeah, and
you know what I'm saying? You buy
doing
time.
all that other stuff.
And the
Yeah,
more time a
exactly.
woman spends with somebody, the more emotionally attached she gets to them. So now she don't know how to leave.
And that's a
Mm.
learned behavior, right? So when you think
Yeah,
about it
definitely.
from the past, that's really why women stayed in relationships because
Mhm.
Fact.
women didn't work outside of the home. They were
Oh
raising
yeah.
15,000 kids. So they were waiting the cost. You know,
Hmm.
do I leave my husband and have to, scrap for these 5 kids, or do I just
Hmm.
stay? And the husband knows that. So the husband's still out there sleeping with Jane and Sue, but he's coming
Hmm.
home. She knows it. Everybody on the street knows it, but
May
I'm
I speak
stuck.
to Barbara? So,
And it burns me as a
Yeah,
woman to see women still falling prey to that. I'm
hmm.
like, it
exactly.
burns me up.
But
Like it's a
all
passion of mine
it's
to
all learned
empower women.
behavior.
That's why I'm in the business.
it's all learned behavior in our subconscious though, because even though
Yeah.
we know better, it's still women, it's still people and women out here that still like gifts is like their number one love language. Not an understanding that you can be lowered to sleep by a bunch of gifts. You know what I'm saying? So it's just what's like you in America, especially as Black people in America, a lot of times you have to unlearn more than you learn. And that's the concept that I learned when I was young. Like, you got to unlearn a lot of stuff because a lot of this stuff is not really conducive to healthy relationships.
You gotta unlearn majority of what you learn
Of course.
in the Black
Facts.
culture. I mean, that's real. If we're going to be real with it, that's real
Yep.
stuff. You have to
Unlearn.
unlearn majority of it.
Yep.
It's so
more than
funny.
you learn.
It's so funny you guys talking about that because I was having this conversation on one of my social media friends about, you know, old ideology about the men is supposed to get their plate first before anybody in the house. And I'm sitting there like, why? You know, because I was like, I just went through a scenario like my daughter and my wife came home. I was home first, and my daughter's hungry. I was like, what sense does that make? Me saying, oh, I got to make sure I get my food first before y'all. Like, why does it matter? You know, and the whole ideology is, oh, it's a respect thing to you, to who let you know who the man of the house is. I was like, I don't need to eat first to know that I'm the man of the house. That's crazy.
And you gonna starve waiting on me to fix that plate. I'm like,
hold on, you ain't gonna fix the plate? Why not? But
my thing is, I will
lot.
fix your plate, but the minute you act like you are entitled
to it, yeah, entitlement
that's
is rough.
a different story. This
Yeah,
entitlement thing gotta go.
Entitlement is rough.
Because
But I have
I'm
seen that conversation.
I'm like,
I've seen that conversation a lot of times on social media, and it's an interesting one in regards to who gets a plate first, the kids or the husband and all those things, or the wife. And one person had a real interesting take on it, and I agreed with him. He was like, it don't matter who you give the plates to and what order you give them in. Ain't nobody eating till my wife sit down. So, it don't matter.
Yeah.
And again,
That's
that
good.
type of, I mean, in all seriousness, that type of attitude and outlook towards it also creates insecurities, right? Because that goes back to what I said by that's a learned behavior. He probably saw that coming up. His dad was always the first one, or whoever the man of the house was always the first one to get the plate. But what does that really do for your relationship? And that's how I kind of look at things now. How is it attitude or taking away the value of my relationship? I'm choosing peace. I'm not going to sit here and kick up dust because I'm not getting my plate first. I'm not going to sit up here and kick up dust because even when it comes down to, and women are probably going to trip when I say this, but even when it comes down to open the door, if my man so happen to not open the door, first of all, I'm not going to trip over that. Like some stuff we just got to put an end to. Yes, I get it, chivalry. But does that really mean my man doesn't love me because he didn't open my door?
Yeah. So for when it comes to like fixing the plate first and the big piece of chicken and getting the big piece of chicken for the bed and stuff, that's based upon he was at work all day, lady was at home, he with the kids. So when you came home, everybody was waiting on daddy to come home and you got the big piece of chicken. We don't live in that society no more. Both people are working. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to opening the door, I do like opening the door for my lady, but she's not big on that. So it's just something that I don't really do that much. But I do know that it sends a signal. It's like we're primal in nature. It sends a signal to the other animals in the kingdom that he know how to take. He's taking care of his woman when I open her door. So sometimes you do cut a man off at the leg. Sometimes when you're taking stands against small things like that.
Well, I'm gonna say this right here. There's a lot of men out there opening your door and 10 other women doors too. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. I'm gonna use my thing. This is true. It don't take a lot of energy to open no doors. It's not gonna take a lot of energy to buy 9 gifts on Amazon. You're right.
But you know,
so if you hung up on getting your door open, I'd rather you be faithful and I open my own daggone door.
Yeah. But you know, a man that is secure, he'll understand where she's coming from and then be able to adjust.
Yeah, correct.
Most definitely.
Yeah, it ain't worth arguing over. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I get the door, sometimes I don't. You know what I'm saying? It ain't worth fighting over, you know. But and I also understand like when a woman's been independent that long, opening her own door, you know, putting together her own table and desktops and putting together her own TVs,
Hmm.
and just come in there and start rearranging everything and saying, I'm doing this now. You don't do that no more. I got
Hmm.
this now. You don't do that anymore. It
Hmm.
just
And
ain't
that's
gonna work.
a real problem, Carlos. And I live in the DMV, right? So we have a lot of women that's making a lot of money.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a lot. I mean, this is like one of the high. I think they said Maryland recently is like one of the highest areas for Black upper class Americans, right?
Hmm.
Because there's so much money being made, and with that comes that very thing that you're speaking of. You have women who now want to be the head of the household.
Yeah,
So all these insecurities are being created in these men, which causes men to step outside of the relationship, right?
yeah,
Because
true.
they, not saying that is an excuse, but it's the reality. They're doing it because, okay, over here, Bonquiqui is
Make me feel
making
like
them the
king.
plate, rubbing
Yeah.
the feet. He the man of the house, take it out. He's doing everything. But over here, she's more like, oh, yeah, you're not going to do it. I'm going to do it,
Hmm.
and so it's a way to handle that,
Correct.
so that insecurity is not being made. Yes, and I was going back to me making the most money. You're still the man of the house, and I would tell them that you're the man of the house. I come to you for things. We make these decisions together. It doesn't matter if I'm putting in 70%. You put. I don't get hung up on that. But again, you have to have a mindset of what the dynamic of your relationship is going to be, and you have to be able to pick your battles. I mean, that's not
Hmm.
just cliche, it's the truth, right? You got to pick your battles. But at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, men have to be affirmed. They have to feel like their position is secured. Their position is secured. They're the head of this household. They are the partner in this relationship, and they should not be emasculated. And there are so many ways to emasculate a man without being just so blatant about it, and we have to understand what that is and be willing to, like you said, let go of the pride and address it.
Yeah, and it's a lot, and that's the key thing you said. There's so many ways to emasculate a man, and I'm a firm believer about 8 times out of 10, a woman don't even understand that she's doing it when she's doing it. Sometimes the man doesn't even know what's happening. He just know he feels different, and it shuts you down in the inside. And now you're seeking something else internally. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what just happened there, but something took place that shifted you internally. And I think we have to be more intentional about how we speak to each other, especially how we speak to men, because for so long we believe men were just these rock solid figures that didn't cry, didn't break, didn't bend, didn't fold. And nah, they got the same type of emotions you have. They just mask them different, and they use different things to hide the pain of them. So that's something that going forward we definitely as a culture have to address and start affirming it. And it has to start young. We don't need to be telling little boys that they're heartbreakers. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna be a little heartbreaker. He gonna have all the girls. We don't need to be telling him that, because that's affirming something to him that don't need to be affirmed. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? Like, we need to tell you, you're gonna be a good man. You're gonna be a honest man. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna be a great husband one day. Like, we need to talk to him like that. Like, look at him with them pretty eyes. He's gonna be a little hot. He don't need that type of affirmation, because those things are gonna manifest, because they play over and over in our heads as we kids.
And that goes back to what the we're still on, how do you help people to overcome this, right? And that's one of the things is men have to be more vocal about it and not make it, not feel as though that makes them a punk or less of a man because they're expressing that emotion or how that made you feel. And we as women have to not make them feel like that. Like, really, man up. I hate that word. I hate that man up
Listen,
word. Like
that's
that
the
that
hardest
really
part. So
gets
look,
to me.
right? Tia, opening up is not the hard part all the time for men. It's the fact that after you open up, it starts an argument. Now, if my feelings cause an argument, or if my feelings hurt your feelings, then I'm not sharing them feelings anymore. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go over here to Becky Sue, and like on Fences, Denzel said, when I'm over there, I laugh from my head to the toes of my feet. I just don't got to worry about the lights, the rent, or getting the roof fixed. Denzel was over there just kicking it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, again, that goes back to what I said about counting up the costs. I'm not gonna pay the bills in here, be the provider, be all of this, and then I'm getting insulted, or then I'm getting, you got to count up that cost. And the same thing, with dealing with insecurities. I mean, you're not gonna be broke halfway something to look at, and you gonna bring insecurity in the relationship. Like we gotta pick a battle. Like we can't be battling it all. We bringing four
Hey,
kids to the relationship. Like it's just too much. You gotta
Tears
count
at
that
least
cost
look good.
up.
Tears at least look good without your filter. You like, hey, you only Instagram fine and you broke. Come on, man. That's it.
Mm-mm. You gotta count up that cost.
Definitely, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Though I definitely do. The last question in regards to insecurities. Um, how do we go about addressing insecurities to the point where our kids don't grow up with the same insecurities that we did, or if they come across situations that can cause those insecurities, they have something to fall back on to the point where it doesn't manifest into something major.
I think it's definitely pivotal to be able to recognize those insecurities. One thing I learned when I was in school, reason why we learn history, so history don't repeat itself. So when you learn those things about yourself that made you insecure, and you know how to properly, delegate those things as far as being able how to speak about those things, then you can go and speak to your children. Okay, yeah, this is what daddy did, and you don't want to do this because you can start to develop these feelings, or even going to the point of talking about their feelings and see what they may be insecure about. Because you know I can even say a lot of my insecurities became because when I was a kid, I
Mm.
was the youngest. And when my brother would do things, cut the grass or break the leaves. Oh, he's too young. Oh, he's too young. And I couldn't do nothing, you know.
That's
So it
funny
was,
because me and my wife talk about this all the time.
mm-hmm,
I had a different mentality about I was a middle child.
mm-hmm,
So I never believed I had a big brother. I always felt like we was equal. So I would always fight them even though they was 7, 8 years older than me. Like I never wanted to be nobody's little brother. You know what I'm saying? And like I was like probably like the worst little brother you ever wanted to have because I
yeah,
wanted to do everything you wanted to do. And if you didn't let me do it, I would fight and then I would get it stopped for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody
yeah,
like, but it's I don't know what it is about me. Like I just never wanted to play that role, and I guess it's because I didn't want to be put in. I didn't want anybody to big chair me, and I'm like that to this day. Like I don't like to be big chaired and little chair. You know what I'm saying? Like we could be equals. Like I could be a big fan of somebody and be like, oh man, LeBron's a great basketball player. But if I see LeBron out, I'm not running up to him and saying anything. I'm just going to like, head nod. That's it. But I'm not doing anything that's gonna make him feel like he's in a bigger chair than me. So that's interesting that you saying doing that caused you to have certain insecurities possibly as you got older.
oh yeah, most definitely facts. Because being as the younger sibling, it was a while before I got to do anything because I was always looked at as the little kid, the little, just little Nate. And even when I became, 18 in my younger 20s, when I was around family, I would still be called that. Here I'm full grown,
Oh
grown
man.
man. Yeah. But still, when they're saying that, it kind of took me into that place without me knowing it. You see what I'm saying? And then, of course, when I'm trying to get into relationships and stuff like that, me not
You
knowing,
still playing that young role, the
still
young
playing that young role,
you.
young Nate or whatever.
Got you.
You see what I'm saying?
And for me, I shared, Carlos, you was on the broadcast before when I shared that I lost my whole family very young. I lost my mother, father, grandparents, all, and my only sibling, all before I was even 23 years old, right?
Hmm.
So me, because of that, I have I don't there's no really no way to sugarcoat this, but my cutoff finger is strong. Like I will
Hmm.
cut someone off in a minute. Like if it doesn't serve me well, I have no problems cutting people off. Man, whoever it is.
You delete
So
the history and the cookies, huh? You get rid of the
oh
whole thing. Control Alt
I'm
Delete.
yes, like done, like for real, like you were never even born. What's your birthday again? That done. So and not that that is a good thing, you know what I mean? It's a good
Mhm.
thing when it serves you, so you're not. But it's a bad thing when you're really cutting off people that you
Good
could have
people
just
sometimes.
given a chance and been patient with, right? So for my daughter, I try to tell her. Um, Again, I try to pour into her things that I've learned, but at the end of the day, things she's going to have to learn along the way as well, because first of all, the dating culture has changed. Let's just put that out there.
Listen,
So
I'm scared for my daughter.
I
She only
feel
6 years old.
Tremendously,
I,
tremendously.
I, I feel for her anyway, but the one thing that I do pour into her is don't play yourself small. You be everything that God created you to be, and when it comes to dealing with other people, you have to understand that hurt is the price that we pay for loving someone. Like, you can't even avoid it. But at the end of the day, you have to look at a situation, and again, you have to ask yourself, does dealing with this situation add to me, or does it take away from me? And you have to address everything like that. And is it worth putting in the investment to resolve it? So that's where I mean by those insecurities. There are different insecurities that I think people should deal with and not deal with. If you're dealing with daddy issues, that's an insecurity that I can't tackle. Like, that's something you're going to have to go
That's
and
rough.
deal with on your own. You know what I mean? Now, if I was in a situation that Sharif Fletcher was in and I was the man in that situation, I wouldn't have dealt with that, because again, in my life where I'm right now, I don't have time to entertain you calling me 24/7. Like, I don't have that kind of time. So that
So
kind of
you saying age?
insecurity
So
I'm
you
not
saying age
dealing
is
with.
so you're saying age is a factor too in regards to what type of
Ab-
insecurity you take on. Got
Absolutely. And the biggest tragedy about ending relationships is when you don't learn from them, and you go from relationship to relationship
You're gonna repeat it,
relationship.
man. If you don't learn
You're
from it, you're
just
gonna repeat it.
repeating.
Life is gonna make you repeat it because God gonna keep making you go through it until you learn. Until you learn the lesson, you have to teach it, keep taking the test. That's how that works.
Most definitely.
And,
Well, I was gonna say,
and
I
it,
was gonna piggyback what you said about the age. Age is definitely a big thing because they got these. I'm 36, and I'll be seeing, even when I was in my 20s, I'll be seeing these 40 and 50-year-olds trying to act like they 20 and everything like that. And it's like,
Out here
yo,
dressed
man,
like R. Kelly.
yeah, I'm like, yo, man, act your age and everything. So I can just feel for people who are, up in age and trying to be in relationship with guys who still dealing with, 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds, still insecure, still look, who you talking to, where you been, all this other
Mhm.
type of stuff. It's like, yo, we is fully grown,
Yeah,
because like if you can't even come into a relationship 100% trust until you give a reason not to trust you, like what is y'all doing for real?
yeah.
Just like she said, it's too much. That's too much work.
I
That's too
think
much
age is
work.
a big factor in regards to what insecurities that you should and should not take on. I like she said it a million times. You do have to count up the cost, and you do have to get a full understanding of yourself, and know, like, you don't jump in the weight room and start lifting stuff you can't lift. You lift what you can lift. Don't put too much weight on that bar because it might fall on your chest. So you just have to make sure whatever insecurities that this person is dealing with, you're strong enough to lift those, and you have some type of personal experience with them too, because you got to have a lot of empathy for that person. You have to put yourself in their shoes a lot of different times. And if you don't have any level of personal experience, whether it's a family member or yourself, it's going to be hard for you to empathize with them the way you need to. Because a person might progress, right? They might make 3, 4 good steps, and then they have a relapse. What do you do when they have a relapse? Do you just blow the whole thing up and go crazy, go off on them, or do you work with them and get them back? So all those things are things that we must take into consideration when we try to embody somebody else's insecurities and make them whole again. And when it comes to our kids, for me, I my main thing is to speak words of affirmation into my daughter. So that's the last thing they can do. The last thing I want my daughter to do is be happy because somebody told her she looked pretty. The last thing I want my daughter to do is be excited because somebody said she was smart. So I want the preliminary stuff to be out the way, and you got to do something real next level and prolific to truly get her attention. You know what I'm saying? So I think it starts for me with words of affirmation to secure her in her space, especially because, little kids are big on words and time. So it's a lot of time spent. And I tell anybody, I'll make videos, man. Something my daughter loves, and she's 6 years old. She loves going back and watching videos when she was 3 and 4. And the things that she did and the things that she said, it brings a different joy to her face, watching herself and knowing who she is now, and seeing like the relationship that we have and the things we were doing. She sometimes like if I ask y'all what did y'all do when y'all was 6, 7, and 8, most of us don't know. We can't remember that, but the videos are a memory of, like, we do science projects together and things like that. So she has a history of man, I did a lot. I did science projects. I knew what density was. I knew what this was. So just things that she can trace back, because she's gonna have her own struggles along the way. But if she can go back to her roots and trace back, she can always, find a better path to get off the path that she might be on already.
Also, you have to be willing to let people go to grow, right?
Hmm.
I remember like my daughter going to the age factor. My daughter, when she broke up with her boyfriend, one of the things she said to me was that
Wait, how old is your
he
daughter?
said she's 22.
Oh, okay.
So she said, well, he said that he's been struggling with finding a job because they're 22, right?
That's
And
that's
but
that's common.
from his culture, in his culture, he's an Asian. He's of Asian descent. So in his culture, they're huge on providing, right? Especially the men. So she was saying that, she felt like he just wasn't happy because he didn't have the job that he wanted. So they eventually broke up. And I told her that was a sign for you.
Mhm.
Because if he's not happy where he is, then he's just staying in the relationship for fear of hurting you. But he's already told you that he's not ready to do A, B, and C because he needs to master this part of his life first, right? So she ended up crying over, of course, but she wasn't so
Oh, yeah,
broken up
that's
about it.
part
She
of it.
got over it like
That's
a
part of the
minute. And
process.
that is because I had already done that work and poured into her that you can't make a man be something. You can't make a man until a man is secure in himself and where he is in life, he's going to always be searching. Like you can't
Always.
do that for him. Like that's and so I've always taught her that. And I also one thing is I've always said after my relationship with my husband was the longer you're with someone you're not supposed to be with, the longer it's going to take you to be with the person that you are. So while you
And
continuing
find the
to
person that you're supposed to be with.
correct. So while you continue to entertain this toxic relationship, you're really only slowing up all that God has for you, and where He's trying to take. And that's not to say you're not going to get there, but it's the difference between could I be in a 30-year marriage by now, or am I going to be in a 5-year marriage by now? Because I done spent 25 years, dealing with this nonsense and not learning the lessons from. And I don't want that to be my story.
Definitely. Nick, got anything else for us?
Yeah. I think we definitely have to be able to, when we're talking about our kids, be able to recognize ourselves, where we're at. And what Miss Tia just said about her daughter, I love that actually. Because I know a lot of times, thinking about that time where that 22 year, I remember when I got my heart broken, you thought life was over, you know.
Hey, listen, let me tell you something. You be on the floor listening to
Yeah,
incomplete, heart
yeah. I
quaking.
think when I was young, that's when that Usher Confession was out. Yeah, repeat, boy.
Oh,
Oh
boy,
Lord.
2004,
Uh,
2005. Come
yeah, man. That was yeah. So it's so pivotal, to be able to have those types of talks with our children, let them know we've been there, and be able to walk them through there. So, and to not stick around so much in those insecure relationships. When you see something like that, it's like, that's a hard road, to travel. Do you really want, are you equipped to be able to go through that? And don't think you have to, you know go down that road. And then you definitely don't want to put yourself in a situation where it's a permanent situation. Now you're involving children, in terms of my being with an insecure person and everything like that. It's just a whole heap of trouble that can brew up.
Oh, he.
Yeah, so
And
so yeah.
I wanted her to I actually wanted my daughter to date in high school and she didn't. Her first relationship was in college. But I actually encouraged her to date in high school because I wanted to monitor and see how she was
Yeah.
going to deal with that first heartbreak. And
Hmm.
I remember when she became a senior, I was just like, oh my gosh, she's going to go off to college and she's going to be away and she's going to deal with that heartbreak and I can't get to her. So I actually encouraged her to date in high school, but she didn't. She was so into her books and you know, where
Hmm.
she was going in her future. But luckily, so my strategy had to change. So that's where, you know, I began to show her more. And I remember like her dad, when they were really little, like 5, someone was kissing on TV and he like covered their eyes. And I thought that was the craziest thing because I'm like, kids are gonna learn this stuff. Like you have to
Tia,
actually get
Tia,
ahead
Tia.
of this.
I don't know. I don't like my daughter seeing the kissing on the TV.
But you know, if they're in a restaurant, you know, and that's the thing. Again, speaking to insecurities, right? I remember Michael Todd. He's a pastor that I watch a lot. He says he was saying that he was doing his sex series, and he was saying that what the first person that teach your kid about it is their becomes their truth. So now, if you come after that person, now you have to compete with what they were already told, right?
This is
So
true.
that has always been my fear. Like I've always tried to get ahead of that because even there's sexual insecurities. Like we haven't
So those
even
are the
touched on
hold
that,
on, those are the biggest ones.
right? We
Those are
haven't
the
even
major
touched on that.
ones. Because you're only as good as the last partner you was with. And you're like, if all you had was vanilla ice cream your whole life, you think vanilla's the best, but you ain't really been doing nothing the whole time. And if you really want to talk about it, a lot of the times women all through their 20s are having sex just for the other person. They didn't get nothing out of the situation. It ain't really for their benefit. They're doing it because he's asking for it. They're doing it because he wants it, not because it's something that they truly feel like they like. The first time they did it for him. They didn't get nothing from it. And they feel like in your mind, since that's your first experience with it, just how it goes. This is what this is about, which does create those certain levels of insecurities.
Absolutely, because I remember my first time. I don't mind being transparent, but I
Me
remember
neither.
my first time. I was with a guy who was older than me, and he had already experienced it. So now here I am, a virgin coming in. Now I'm just like, he was
He
doing
already
stuff,
know
and
what
I'm
he's doing.
like, wait a minute
Yep.
now.
Yep.
I felt like I couldn't keep up. So
Yep.
sexual insecurities are real, and people still deal with that at 40 years
But
old in
but if you look
relationships.
but if you look back on it, you'd be like, that boy ain't have a clue what he was doing. He didn't know what was going on. What was he doing? Like, but he knew more than you, and that's all that mattered at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And Michael Ty, he actually, again, if you have never looked at his sexual relationship series, it's so good because he is very transparent about his porn addiction, and he talks about how his wife didn't understand what was going on because she didn't know she had to deal with all these porn
yeah,
tricks that
yeah,
he
because
had
see,
been
like,
watching,
and that's what I
and
was going
he's
to talk about.
bringing that
Yeah,
to the bedroom. So
yeah,
even
because like,
that insecurity.
yeah, because I did grow up watching a lot of porn, and when I was 6 years old, my babysitter had a daughter, and she was about 15, and she made me play between her legs. So at 6 years old, I became way more sexually mature than all of my peers. Therefore, I was extremely confident and was able to prey on all their insecurities because they didn't know what they were doing. So when I talk about sexual insecurities, I understand it from the predator perspective because I got preyed on first, then I became the predator. And that's usually how these situations work. So I'm 9, 10 years old, and I know all about sex stuff that I don't need to be knowing. Looking at Playboy magazines, I'm watching the squiggly lines on the pay-per-view channel, trying to see if I can get a glimpse of it. You know, like I'm way too deep into this stuff, and the other kids, I'm bringing this new idea to them that they've never heard before, because their mother and their father ain't talking to them about it. So I'm on the back of the bus clowning them because they don't know certain things, which is putting them on a crash course with whoever the next person is to try to do something to prove that they know something about what they got clowned for. So I do, even though I don't like to watch or I don't want my daughter to see stuff like that, I do make myself go through that because man, like I never forget my daughter came home from daycare one day and she was in the shower and she was saying how I told her to wash her vagina, because I use the appropriate terms, but I don't call it a toot toot or a hoo hoo or none of that craziness. You know what I'm saying? Like, and she was like, okay, but little boys don't have vaginas. They have something different. And I'm like, what? So, you know, my whole chest cavity just caved in. Like, I'm thinking somebody done exposed my daughter, who done touched us. I'm my mind going crazy. So I take a deep breath and I'm like, okay, so what do little boys have? Because maybe she making something up. And she said it's a circle with a triangle. And I'm like, she done seen something. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I go to the upper room. I cry a little bit. I said, I got to address this the right way. I don't want to go off. So I cry for about 15 seconds. She's still in the shower. And I go back in there. And I'm like, okay, so how do you know this? I didn't want to ask that question, but I had to. So she's like, I forget the little boy name, but he came out the bathroom without pulling his pants up. And I thought in that moment, Dad, all these times I've been taking her to these public bathrooms where they're trying to hide all this, trying to make sure she ain't see it. And just like that, a little 4-year-old boy just snatched my baby innocence like that. So I had to have a whole conversation with her about what she saw, explain it in detail, the scrotum and the penis. And I'm going to tell you what's the most trippiest thing about kids. She told me, she had this conversation with me in December. That boy had stopped going to the school in like September. So she held all of this for about 2-3 months, had me thinking she didn't know what nothing was. I was like, man, listen, you got to start having these conversations up front, because these kids be hiding what they know straight up.
They actually do. And growing up, I used to call it a freebie. My daughter was able to kind of say whatever to me. I never stifled her, her conversation. And I'm telling you, every time she came to me, it was always way sooner than I thought that I would have to have the conversation.
Listen,
Like, she hugged a girl and she came home and was like, "What's a lesbian?" Somebody told me and my friend were lesbians. And then she came home like at 10 and asked me what masturbation was, because the boy on the bus was in the back of the bus simulating like he was,
masturbating.
masturbating. And she's like, and he said, "I'm coming." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like, all of this was like literally at 10, 11. And I'm thinking, really, are we serious right now? But when you
Listen,
think about the times and
yo, it's
evolution,
so far.
right? They're really doing this at a much younger age right now.
The
So you
internet.
have to get in front of
Yeah,
that and give them that healthy conversation, because they're going to get it somewhere else and it's going to be tragic.
yeah. I definitely don't want my daughter to learn on the back of the school bus like I did. We don't need that type of information, because
Yeah, what we gotta realize too, kids have access to information like never before. You
valid.
know, a lot of times, just like just like how you said college, it was basically it depended on your atmosphere, whether you was exposed or not. These kids can go on their phone and they can see. I mean, sex is what sells. Sex is mainstream. You know, you got people like Meg Thee Stallion and Cardi B looking at household names. You know, and that's just the truth about it. And that's what's popular. That's what's popping.
Yeah, I just
And
seen
that's
Beyonce's new Adidas ad on Instagram. She sprawled
mhm,
across that thing. Like, man,
really.
yikes.
So
Yeah,
so
it's
the so these are
rough.
sexual. Yes, these are sexual vibes that are being given off, and you know how kids are going to be curious. And then the biggest thing, the one thing I talked about my wife when we find out we're having a daughter, I like our influence has to be bigger than the world's, because once they leave, this is pre-COVID. It's like when she goes to the schoolhouse, because I know what it's like. A lot of things that I learned was at school, being around
Mhm,
other people, just like how everybody else's testimony was on the school bus, hearing
mhm.
this conversation, or you
You
got
know,
this
the
person.
infamous question when they ask you how many hoes do a girl got, and if you say two, they be like, you wrong. Everybody clowning you, then you the clown for like the whole 2-3 weeks because you guessed the wrong amount of hoes and all that, and like what it creates that insecurity to the point where you're trying to like, because a lot of young boys, what we do is we use women to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. So like, I'm going to go find a girl now and experiment on her to make myself feel better about myself. Like, let somebody smell my hand. Look what I just did. I did this. I did that. So those insecurities, those sexual insecurities, they started at a very young age, man. And
Very much so.
a lot of us so like getting in front of the conversation like Tia's done with her daughter is very important, but especially for little boys, because little boys, we go out here and you know, we run amok on these young little girls. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I
girls
even
don't
say
think about that a lot of times. We bring that conversation to them mostly.
I remember the first time I was introduced about sex was the fourth grade, and it wasn't me being aggressive; it was the female being aggressive on that, and it was an expectation as far as me being able to perform and everything. And this is like around a crowd of people and everything like that, and it's like and I didn't know nothing about nothing. And I didn't even know it existed. I didn't know what it was. And so when you think about so already, you're deemed not the cool person because you doesn't know anything about that type of,
Adult life, for sure.
yeah, adult life. And here it is. I'm worried about, playing outside. And here it is. You got a group of people introducing you, trying about doing sexual favors and stuff like that.
Went from
So
G.I. Joes to knowing how to kiss and have sex. Come on,
yeah,
man.
so you think about that. That was back in like '94. Now you think about going into 2021, what these conversations that these kids are having. So it's definitely parents got to be mindful and don't always sit there thinking your kid's going to be so innocent also too, and just face the reality and have this conversation just like Miss T said. Now just create a safe place for them to have a conversation because you definitely would want to know versus you knowing too late and then now you finding out you
Behind the
about
eight
to be
ball
a
there.
grandparent.
I ain't
Yeah,
catch
you.
up after that.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why sex and money is the top two main reasons for divorce, right? Is that it's a real thing. Like we just discussed both of those here tonight when you talk about
But
insecurities.
that's crazy, right? It ended up going to both of those, though. That's crazy. That was not intentional, folks.
No, but it tells you just how real it is. And I remember looking at a therapist one time. She was a family therapist, and she said, your reaction when your child comes to you to tell you something for the first time is going to shape how they come and tell you anything else in the future. So if they come to and they don't get
And you
the
blow up on
feedback, or
it, yeah. Or you shut it
they're
down.
never
You're not supposed to be
going,
doing that while you talking about, yeah. That's why I had to go in the other room and cry first and get myself together.
yep,
Because this is my little baby. The hardest part about having a daughter is you gotta, like, you want to hold on to the baby they used to be, but you still gotta raise the little kid that they becoming and the adult they becoming, and you just be torn between the two. You be like, man, because every time, sometimes they give you those moments where it's like, that's still my little baby. But then other times they give you those moments like, she growing up. You know what I'm saying?
And we talked about this in the last segment that I was on when we were talking about the absent fathers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's to you guys' point, you being men and fathers, the girl, because my daddy, he is big on saying the woman is the incubator. Like the man carries the seed, the woman is the incubator. Nothing takes place if that woman does not allow it to take place. And
That's
so
so
he
that's
puts
so perfect.
all the value on the woman. And so it's so important for men, going back to that, I won't even say affirm, validate. You have to
Come
validate
on,
your girls
let's go.
because they have to. And for my daughter having an absent father in her life, it was so important for me to put this army of soldiers around her,
Around her.
these men, to make sure. So I was really surprised that she held out as long as she did. She was like 21. I thought that was because,
That's
mine was like
very long.
17, 18. So for her not
Very
having a
long.
father and right, for her not having a father in her life, I thank God that that's where we were. And she was very intentional about it. Like she knew it was going to happen. They had been together for so long. So it's not one of those things where she was tricked into it or she felt like she needed to secure the relationship. It was really an informed decision, and she told me about it prior to her doing it. So in my eyes, that was all wins. You know
Facts.
what I mean? Because you
And
can't
you know
say
what's so funny? Just hearing you talk about that, like thinking like that's why it makes so much sense why people should wait until they married to have sex, because if you both don't have any information about how to have sex or have different experiences and partners, you have nothing to be insecure about. Y'all both going to this situation with blank canvases. See what I'm saying? Like, but you don't know how good my painting is. I don't know how good your painting is. And we coming together and we mixing all these different colors, and we don't know what kind of art we're gonna make. Whereas if we both come with blank canvases, and in our culture in America is like the only culture where it's so openly to talk about these things. Because if these things aren't openly talked about, you don't know that you don't know anything. you don't know how much this person knows or know how much that person knows. So I, that's so interesting. It just came to me as you were saying that, like, wow, like if we both came in as blank canvases, though, wouldn't nobody be worrying about how the colors work?
Yeah, that's definitely. I definitely see the benefit of waiting till marriage. When I got married, because you can. I identify how me and my wife experiences were totally different. She, just like your daughter, she waited till college till
Yeah.
she got till she lost her virginity. But she had a different type of testimony. She was locked down. So, when
Hmm.
girls are locked down, she was like opportunity away from everybody,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know. Versus I started, I lost my virginity. I was like in my teens, like 13,
Mhm.
14, something like that, and been doing it ever since then. So when you can't have those situations where somebody's more experienced than the
Correct.
other,
You have to
that can
remove,
present issue, that could present issues,
correct, because you have to
you
remove
know.
so many different things and experiences to create your own understanding and experience of what a good sexual encounter is. Whereas with
Yeah.
blank canvases, y'all create this experience and understanding of sex together.
Yeah, because what you said something earlier that hit the head on the nail. A lot of times with females experiences, they just got a guy coming in and
Yeah,
and
that's it.
then without having no experience, and then that's their reality, thinking that's what it
For,
is,
for
and there's
most
so much more.
for most women that I've known and encountered and talked to in the beginning, sex is usually a task or a man.
Hmm.
It's either
Yeah,
something they do because that guy wants to do it, or it's something they're doing to try to hide or get away from something else they're going through. So it's a task or it's a mask to cover up something else. And it's just unfortunate because when you're trying to actually be in a sexual encounter with this person that's true and potent, it's hard for them to grasp it because their body is responding to it in those two frames, a task and a mask. You know what I'm saying?
And see, I have a different outlook on the wait until marriage for sex type thing. So we'll say that for another show. But
Fat. I got you.
I definitely understand the reason behind saying that, and I definitely understand where where there's some value in that. But that wasn't my approach when it came to my daughter. It was like,
Oh, you didn't want her to do that.
well, no, it wasn't that. It was more so, this is what the word says, you know, and I read the word, but at the end of the day, like I told her, Ruth didn't wait. Ruth had sex with Boaz that night on the tearing floor. Like they can, you do the etymology on that scripture. We talk about it all the time at Bible study when that scripture comes up. At the end of the day, Ruth, they slept together.
Oh boy,
So
I
so
ain't messing with you, Ted.
and the word also says there's nothing new under the sun. So this is not new, so my approach to her was more so it needs to mean something. This is what you need to, when you talk about having sex with someone, you cannot go back from that. There, it is over. Like, there is no take backs. So I'm like, when you think about it, let it be because you want to do it. Don't feel pressured. Don't feel, because I would
That's the
like for you
main
to
part.
wait.
mm.
I
That's
would
the
like for
main
you
part.
to
Not feeling
wait.
pressure. Do it for
Yeah,
yourself, not for somebody else. For
absolutely.
sure.
Because I would like for you to wait, but the reality is most people do not.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
So let me equip you with what you need in order to make an
Yeah,
informed
definitely not.
decision to do it. So
Definitely not. Well,
Yeah.
my people, it's been a great show. I enjoy all the different perspectives. I hope all of you out there enjoy them as well. Um, any one of you got anything else to say before we end the night?
all I wanted to say is just, you guys can speak from the male perspective. Being the only woman on this platform, I feel obligated to talk to the women
Hold
and
them
just
down.
really let you know that self love is a real thing. It's a real movement. It's not just the glam of going to spas and getting massages and your nails and your feet done. It's about doing the internal work. Really take time out to know who you are. Even if you're married, it's not too late. Go to your space, let your husband know, because you should always inform your partner when you're doing anything. Let them know, I just really want to get back in tune to who I am, and do that work. Try to figure it out. It would probably just make your relationship that much better. You just never know. And encourage your spouse to do the same. Like, we evolve over time as we get older. We become, this evolution of ourselves. So always know who you are at every stage, and don't feel guilty about it. It's the reason why women, when their children leave the home, they're lost, because they pour so much into their spouses and their children,
And
and then
never to
when
this
they're
stuff.
gone, it's just this empty shell, and they have no clue what to do and how to move forward. So really take that time to do the work. And if you're not married, take that time to know who you are. And you may just look to the side and be like, okay, that's not who I'm supposed to be with, and run fast. So that's what I really want to. I'm in the beauty industry, so I left that cybersecurity job to fulfill my purpose and my passion, which is
I hear that.
empowering women.
Wow.
And God actually ended
Awesome.
up giving me more income than I made when I was in cybersecurity.
That's how it
So
works.
I only stumbled on that because I did the work to learn who I am and what my true purpose and passion was in life. And when you do that, the word says he will add everything else unto you when you focus on the things of the kingdom. So
Mhm.
work on yourself, work on your purpose and your passion in life, and everything else is going to fall in alignment. And that's my take.
Boom.
You got something, Nato? We good?
She said it all, man. There ain't
Definitely.
nothing else to say. Drop the
Moral to the
mic.
story is security, insecurities. You have to secure yourself first before you can secure anybody else. And if I secure myself and you secure yourself, any insecurities we come across along the way, we can attack those together instead of attacking each other. And we're gonna leave in the way that we greet and say peace, peace of land, peace of mind, peace of whatever you can find. Peace.